Let's start with a review. Do you guys remember anything about last week? So, what is public speaking? Can anyone tell me what public speaking is? Shannon.
Face-to-face interaction with others using the art of persuasion.
Yeah, that's great. Now, does anyone remember what debate is? Oh, yeah? Yeah?
To prove that something is right or to prove that something is wrong.
Yeah, that's great. Here. Okay. And can anyone tell me what speech is? All right, Shannon.
Speech can be used to inform and entertain.
All right. So, can anyone, like a little challenge question, can anyone name a debate event from last week? Let's have you answer.
The Lincoln Douglas debate.
Oh, yeah, that's great. Does anyone else remember any other ones? Yeah?
Well, actually, I had an idea, but I don't know if it's correct.
It's okay, just say it. Okay, then. It's all right. Yeah, Johanna?
Policy debate.
Yeah, policy debate. And Shannon, do you have?
Public forum or parliamentary.
Yep. Those are all really great answers. All right, so let's go into what is speech. So speech is a type of public speaking, and it's usually used to inform or persuade your audience of an idea or topic. So it's different from debate because in debate, we usually see two teams going against each other or two people arguing against each other, but in speech, you're just one person up there speaking to your audience. You aren't trying to argue against anyone, respond to any points. Basically, you're just speaking like how I am right now. Okay, so now a really popular thing a lot of people say is, oh, I'm afraid of speaking out loud. Like, a lot of people don't enjoy talking. So here's some tips to overcome a fear of speaking in front of people. So first, you want to take a moment and just breathe, because a lot of people, when they get scared, the first thing they do is they can't speak. Like, their entire voice just, like, shuts. So you can tell that you want to take a moment and just let yourself breathe and don't stress out too much. Don't think about other things. Just focus on what you're about to talk about. And some tips are to, instead of just looking directly at people's eyes, because that can be a little bit scary, you can look above people's heads, which gives the idea that you're looking at them, but you aren't actually looking at them. And you also want to prepare as much as possible, because you don't want to just go up there and have nothing to say. You want to prepare as much as you can so that you know what you want to say. And also, you need to remember that practicing speaking in front of others is the most beneficial. So practice is the most important. You can't just expect to go up there and do it perfectly the first time. You need to practice speaking in front of people, and eventually you'll become more confident while doing it. So there are three main types of speech. The first type is called a platform speech. So these are pre-written speeches. So for example, TED Talks, presidential speeches, all of these different things are platform speeches. They're written beforehand, not on the spot. And then a second type is called an impromptu speech. So this is on your feet. And for example, have you guys ever been called out in class? Like your teacher asks you to talk about something or just like answer a question? Yeah, you have. So that's a kind of impromptu speech because you didn't plan anything. You didn't wake up in the morning and think, oh, is my teacher going to ask me a question? I might as well like prepare that. Like that's not how, so an impromptu speech is just on your feet and on the spot. So an example of this would be like live news. They don't pre-write what's happening at the moment. The reporters on the spot have to make up what they're saying. And then finally, the most fun one that I really enjoy watching is called an interpretive speech. So this is like acting. Basically, you take a book and you present it and act it out in front of people. So what happens in a speech round? So there's usually 3 or more judges. And so can anyone tell me what you remember about debate rounds from last week? Do you know what happens during a debate round? Yeah?
One side gets to say what they're going to debate about, and then the judges pick who's going to go first, and then who answers.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, so in a debate round, there's usually one judge, and 2 people or teams debate against each other and respond to each other's arguments. But a speech round is completely different. So there's usually 3 or more judges, and each speaker will individually come into the room and present their speeches. They don't talk to each other or necessarily reference each other. They just show up and give their speech. And then the judges themselves will rank each speaker in the room by how they presented. So they normally write your name down in the order they think you should be ranked in your room. So unlike a debate round where one team wins and one team loses, there's a bunch of people and each person is ranked individually. And that's how a winner is decided. And that's why there's more than 3 judges, because if there's only one judge, there could be a potential bias. Or like, let's say I'm judging a round and I personally like this one person better than all the other people, so I'm going to rank them first. But if there's 3 or more judges, it gives each speaker a more fair chance of winning the round. So let's go into how do you prep a speech. So can anyone tell me what impromptu is? Do you remember? Yeah?
On your feet or on the spot?
Yes. So now you might be asking, how do you prep an impromptu because you don't know what your topic is? So as soon as you receive your topic, you want to create a long list of every single thing you can think about on the topic. Then you want to organize the list into several smaller points. And then after you come up with your points, you want to come up with a good opener, like a story or a quote that will get your audience attention. And most people don't typically write a conclusion to their speech unless they really want or need to. So, for example, your conclusion is basically just summarizing your speech, so you don't need to waste time writing that out. It comes out naturally while you're speaking. You want to just tell your judge what you told them previously. All right, the next type of speech is a platform. Can anyone tell me what that is? Yeah?
You repeat something that you're supposed to say.
Yeah, so you pre-write the speech. So you want to write the speech beforehand, and you want to have preparation before you give your speech. So now this is way before you even know that you're going to a round. You want to, like, for example, you're at home preparing your speech. You want to think of a topic that's interesting to you. So think of it as like writing an essay. Have any of you guys ever written an essay? Yeah, okay, so you know it's hard, it's not easy to just come up with something. So you want to think of something that's interesting to you and other people. So come up with the topic that you like and you care about, also that other people care about too. And then you want to pick 3 areas or aspects that you want to focus on. So I recently did a speech on con artists. Does anyone know what a con artist is? Yeah, Marcus, what's a con artist?
Like somebody that sells stuff that are fake or like
Yeah.
CD,
Yeah. Yeah, so I did an expository speech on con artists. What that means is I had props next to me and I spoke about con artists. And I believe my 3 main points, I was telling stories of con artists that I had studied before. So I talked about, have you guys seen the movie Catch Me If You Can? You guys heard of that? Yeah, so I talked about that movie. And then you want to write your speech, and now that you're not done after you finish writing your speech. As you go out throughout the year, you want to continue editing your speech depending on what judges tell you, and so on. Okay, and finally, the last speech is an interpretation. Now, does anyone remember what that is? Yeah?
You act out your speech.
Yeah. So an interpretation is usually based off of a book. So I think one year I did it on a girl who played violin, and it was a kid's book, and I wrote down the quotes. So you want to make your own script. So obviously you're not going to read the whole book to people because that's not very fun for people to watch. So you want to create your own script by picking out lines from there. And then you want to practice your blocking. And some people even do voice impressions, like they do accents, funny voices to get people to pay attention. And you also want to add performance details. So for example, maybe props or other things involved. Now let's go into tips for good and interesting delivery. So first you want eye contact. So you want to look at your audience because it's really boring if I'm just speaking and staring off into space, right? You want me to look at you and get you to understand what's going on. And then you also want to change your tones of voice because we all know listening to a robotic voice is not very interesting, right? You don't want to listen to a robotic voice for hours. You also want facial expressions because you want to get your audience to feel things with you as you're doing your speech. And finally, the most important, I believe, is gestures. You want to be able to point around because you don't want to just stand there like this and just recite a whole speech, right? That's really boring. You want to move around, point at things, maybe just accent your words with movement. All right, now I have an activity for you guys. You guys don't have to participate, but it'd be really great if you did. This is called a volte voce. So basically the point is you spend 30 seconds talking about something, and then someone calls out volte voce, and then you spend the next 30 seconds reversing. So for example, if you want to do gummy bears versus gummy worms, the first 30 seconds you talk about how gummy bears are better than gummy worms, and then you spend the next 30 seconds talking about the opposite, so gummy worms are better than gummy bears. So does anyone want to go first? Yeah. All right, so let's move on to the next thing. We're going to go into further detail what each speech is. So can anyone tell me what a platform speech is? Do you remember? Does anyone remember what a platform speech is? Yeah, Shannon?
It's your own pre-written speech.
Yeah, that's good. So some examples of platform speeches, I mentioned TED Talks earlier, but some speech events that we compete in are stuff like persuasive speeches and original oratory. So I think you guys all know what a persuasive speech is, you know, like when you want to convince someone of something. So earlier you guys were trying to persuade your audience why something was better than another. So that's a persuasive speech. And then an original oratory speech it's more free speech. It's not convincing you of anything, but it's meant to inform your audience. So you want to tell your audience more about something that maybe you're interested in or you want to talk about. Now, can anyone tell me what an impromptu speech is? Oh, you have a question? Oh, you know what an impromptu speech is? Okay.
Kind of right on the spot.
Yeah.
With no preparation.
Yes. So an impromptu speech usually has no preparation, but technically we do have a little bit of preparation. But the whole point is that you know your topic. You don't know your topic until you get to compete. So an example of this is extemporaneous. I'm going to compete in this. It's a topic where you go to the competition and you are given a topic about the news. So for example, you guys know who President Trump is, right? So yeah, so you can get a topic like, is President Trump going to do something? And I have to research it for 30 minutes and give a 7-minute speech while using evidence to explain my point. Another example is apologetics. So this is where you talk about the Bible and you want to defend the Bible, and you usually get a topic and you, I believe, get 5 minutes to prep a speech. And then the last one is called Mars Hill. So this sounds a little bit weird, but what it basically is you get like a current event thing. So for example, a movie or a song or a book, and you have to talk about how this relates to God and why it's important. Now finally, who can tell me what interpretation speech is? Yeah?
You act out a speech from a book or a script.
Yeah, good job.
Or a screen project or a projected screen.
Yeah, that's great. So an interpretive speech is when you act something out. Shannon. Oh. So some examples is an open interpretation, which is 6 minutes long, and it's really free. So you can pick. Actually, I know some of my friends do open interpretation, and they write their own stories and act it out. So it's really free, and you can choose what you want. Then there's humorous interpretation, which is, as it sounds like, it's supposed to be really funny. You want to make your audience laugh. And finally, the last one is dramatic interpretation, which is usually really, really sad, and sometimes it makes people cry. So let's watch some video examples of these types of speech. The first one, so I didn't talk about this earlier, but it's called a duo interpretation. So this is where two people go together and then they make an interpretation together. So let's open this YouTube video.